All right, Brian, we're back with a dynasty price check on Mr. Joe Mixon, who the new Houston Texans will have a standard league here, 12 team superflex PPR, start 10. You want Mixon or the 207 and the 307 in this year's draft?
Yeah, I know I say this a lot, but I really feel like I like both sides of this trade. You know, 207, 307. That whenever I see picks that are like the same number in different rounds, it's like, okay, that was earned. You know, it could be a coincidence. But I'm trying to go into a lot of these videos just assuming this got earned by this person and then kind of present the other scenarios. But yeah, I mean, that basically means you made the playoffs and, you know, you got bounced in the first round. And running back depth is never a bad thing to have for a contending team. I know you don't like buying running backs in the offseason because so much could change, but, you know, Mixon just got his contract from Houston, you know, and, you know, he got traded there and then they gave him a contract immediately. So I think they feel pretty confident in using him, and he has no one in front of him, basically. Who's the other guy? Is it Damian Pierce? I can't even remember.
Oh, he's fallen.
Yeah, I know. It's like, that's his name, right? Because he wasn't even a factor last year. But yeah, no, I think this is a fair price for Mixon to go into a contending team. Like, basically, you know, a mid-second round pick is probably pretty close to what he's worth, and you're throwing the mid-third in there as like a little bit of like icing, you know. And if I'm a rebuilding team and I have Joe Mixon on my team, or even if we're kind of going with the selling running backs in the off season kind of thing, it's like, if you want to just get rid of the risk and just kind of go at it again, like getting the picks for this guy, I think is a good move. So yeah, both sides I really like.
Yeah. Yeah, it is important to note, you know, like we're talking about this on March 25th. Generally, like you know, you already mentioned it. Don't like buying guys like Mixon now, because what if my team just like tanks? And then again, you can sell him. I kind of like the Mixon side though, just in a vacuum. If we're talking about, in a vacuum, any time of the year type of thing. Like I think Mixon's probably a good lock for a top 12 running back this year. You know, assuming health. He has been like every year that he's been healthy. I think he missed 1 year. Was it 2020 where he missed with like the toe injury? But basically since 2019, he's been like a top 12 running back every year.
Yeah, wasn't he like RB6 or 7 last year or something?
Something like that, yeah. And it's just on like pure volume. So I think they're going to give him the volume. They obviously we didn't talk about the contract. They signed him to a 3-year contract, which is essentially a 2-year contract, but it was a pretty good deal. So like they kind of showed what they think about him, and it's like, all right, this is our guy for the next 2 years. You look at Damian Pierce's numbers. I think a lot of people worry like, well, it's going to be a split backfield and all this stuff. You know, San Francisco system. This coaching staff comes from. They always use, you know, multiple backs unless, you know, you're McCaffrey. But you look at Damian Pierce's snap share at the end of the season: 5, 15, 14, 20, 0 in the last season. Like, he was just not. It wasn't even like, oh, he's like a decent back, like a second. He's like the 1B, or, you know, it's like, no, he's in there to like, all right, take a break for a few plays and come back. The starter comes back type of running back. So, and then Singletary was awesome. His 8 weeks, 7 weeks or so, the last 7 weeks of the season, he was like a top 10 running back. So I'll take the Mixon side and be happy with it. I don't mind cashing out on him with those picks, and like getting on, like, obviously those picks, their values only, we always talk about it, the value is only going to go up for the next month and a half. Mixon's value can go down pretty easily, or if they draft a running back or something. So the picks are obviously a little bit safer of an investment, but
yeah, I do think his value is somewhat insulated. It could definitely go down, but I'm pretty comfortable with all the things that you mentioned. Like, I'm confident in Mixon. kind of like what you were saying. Like, I don't like Pierce is not going to be the dude taking him off the field. We saw Singletary look good behind the same line, and we never really thought too much of Singletary. Like, he's a good enough player, but not quite Joe Mixon. So, yeah, I think it's all like, even if they draft a guy, like another running back, like I mean, depending on who it is, I guess, but I think the contract speaks enough about like, all right, they got a vet, he's already there, and they can start, working him into the system or like planning accordingly. So I'm pretty confident in his, in like how they're going to use him this year.
Yeah, I agree. He's going to do, like, he doesn't need to be that explosive. Like, he hasn't been very efficient with the Bengals, like, but he's just had the volume, like his best yards per carry since 2019 is 4.1. He's just right around the 4, averaging 4 yards a carry, but he gets 250 carries and he gets 50 catches and he's good, so this is going to be another thing to factor in. Is people are very high on the Texans. They love CJ Stroud. They love this offense. So, there's going to be, I get the starting running back for the Texans. Like, I think you can even, on the other side, I feel like you can maybe even sell them for a little bit higher than just those 2 picks.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of scrubbing through the Dynasty Daddy trade. What do you call it? Archive or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's a couple of trades, like, where he went for the 202, he went for the 203, essentially the same settings, 12 team PPR starting. Was it 10? I think it was 10 for these two that I saw. But yeah, anyways, like, yeah, I think you could probably pull off a little more. I'd be happy with the proposed trade, even if the second was a little bit later, and you tried to get a 25 second on top of it. That'd be awesome. But yeah, like I think I'm comfortable with Mixon at this price. So I really like it. I think it's pretty fair.
What else is interesting is maybe it's the contract, but he's jumped up 10 spots. And it's not like he was on a bad team or an impending free agent. Like, he was on the Bengals. He was on the team. They traded him. They cut him. Well, they traded him. Originally cut him, then traded him. Like, he was on the Bengals. It's not like he was like Henry, who didn't have a team. We don't know where he's going to go. It's like, this guy's going to be on the Bengals. That's at least the thought process. And he jumped up 10 spots. So that just like further emphasizes, like, yeah, people love the Texans, I think. Maybe it is the contract, but
I see him jumping 13 spots. He was 31.
Yeah,
just
there you go.
On March 12th. So
yeah,
that was like right around the time they acquired him. So
yeah, and maybe so I mean, I forget when they signed the contract, but it's just funny. Like, it's not like he was on a bad team. He was on the Bengals.
Yeah,
so
I think it is a combination of people do really like the Texans right now, and but also there was a lot of like running backs always lose value like at the end of the season, and then they kind of like start going down and depending on like what's happening, and there was always what's going to happen with his contract kind of a thing. So I think that's where like a lot of that came from, which kind of made sense, I guess, with him. Like if you think about like a guy like Saquon Barkley, like he probably didn't go through that same dip necessarily, like, because people were a little more confident in his skill set and that he was going to go somewhere and be the guy, kind of a thing. Just pulling up Barkley right now just to see. It's like, yeah, like he had the dip a little bit, but he still was at like RB11 before he signed with the Eagles. So and he jumped up to 8. Obviously you can't jump as much spots when you're closer to the top, but yeah, it's something to consider. Like, if you're going to continue playing Dynasty, just think about like the ebbs and flows of the value of these guys, when to buy, when to sell. And you kind of have to just figure out what type of risk do you want, whether that risk is carrying running backs in the offseason, trading for 2025 picks, or even just acquiring picks for this year. Like, there's risk in all of that, and it's all different, so you got to figure out what you're comfortable with.
Yes, very well said. I guess we'll wrap it up there, and we will be back with Russell Wilson, Jerry Jeudy, one of those two. We will catch you guys in that video.